Hello and welcome to Zerocarbonista, Series 6, The Cow in the Room. I'm Ian Collins, and this is your number one go-to environment-based podcast. It's this simple. If it's green, it's in. And here's the thing, Dale. We normally start this off by going, what kind of week have you had? But you told us last week you're going to do sod all in November. So I'm assuming nothing happened.
November for me, but for the rest of the world, it was a bit like WTF a week, wasn't it? I mean, big stuff happened. I just want to say, actually, you don't have to be green to be in this. We have a bunch of right-wing nuts as well, and some very ungreen people, and we're about to talk about them.
Yeah, well, let's start with a Telegraph journalist who apparently, I'm assuming she doesn't like you very much, Dale.
Yeah. I mean,
who is this and what's been going on?
Sheer entertainment value, as far as I'm concerned. Charlotte C. Gill, or Jill is her name, with a G, not a J. And apparently she's unearthed a left-wing conspiracy cabal, of which I'm at the center of. I'm a shady character, apparently. Somebody I've never heard of. I'm guessing a lot of people listening to this podcast will have never heard of Charlotte C. Gill. I think that's how you pronounce it. It begins with a G.
Lottie.
Lottie? You're Lottie. Oh, your mate. Okay. I didn't know. But look, she reckons everything on the left of life revolves around me. She fired up a 61-tweet thread about me. She made the New European off the back of that in terms of news. She's making her own news. She says there's a vast left-wing conspiracy involving me, Greenpeace, the National Trust. That's pretty unlikely. Alistair Campbell, never even met him. LBC Radio, which I'm on from time to time. And Vorders, right? We're all apparently a part of this left-wing cabal that's trying to take over the world. And she is a self-styled woke finder-in-chief, as it happens.
Yes, she is the woke finder general. And she, if there's woke out there, she will go and winkle that shit out.
Winkle the woke.
She will winkle the woke. And she's rumbled you, Dale. I mean, if I can just put my Charlotte hat on for a second, you're hanging around with the wrong people. You're forcing her to write in the middle of the night, probably a 61 tweet thread. I mean, how much time do you have to have on your hands?
That's mad.
To do that stuff.
I mean, it says here she claims I'm Britain's new Soros. I didn't know Britain had an old Soros, actually. Is he British? I mean, I didn't even know that. And one of her most exciting, I would say, claims is that taxpayers have been funding a £200,000 study on the environment impact of Star Wars. I mean, I think she might have made that up.
She might have made that up, yeah. But, you know, she's onto something, isn't she, our Lottie? She knows.
Oh, how about this? Made that up, might she?
Might she? Indeed, she might. So I don't know why she's picked you
channeling, I was channeling Yoda there in case you missed it.
I liked it, yeah. And I think the Star Wars fans would have picked that up immediately. Why do you think she's selected you as being kind of the center of gravity for all things that are wokey, in her words?
Honestly, I have no idea.
But the woke fighter general will find you. Yeah, she will find, wherever you are.
She found me. I mean, why is it taking so long? It's not like I've been invisible.
Yeah. They used to have a ducking stall for witches, didn't they?
I think she just woke up, actually, because I've been highly visible for years. Yeah. Suddenly, she comes up with this.
Yeah, well, she's got her matches and her steak ready for ignition. So if you see her anywhere, give her a wide berth, Dale. There is another. I suppose this has to come under right-wing nut.
Can I just say? Oh, yeah.
Go on.
Well, I was going to say, talking of steak, I've just seen in a kind of on. What would I say? I've just seen a conversation between Joe Rogan and Elon Musk, in which they're both like evangelizing about the egg and steak diet, how that's all they live on. And Musk says it's like a power up, and the idea that animal agriculture is driving the climate change is nonsense. He said we could all give up steak tomorrow. That wouldn't be hard for me. And you couldn't even measure the difference. I mean, what planet do these people live on?
Well, they've obviously been reading Charlotte Gill's tweets and thought, what can we do to piss off Dale Vince? I know what we'll do. We'll say that all we eat are eggs and steak. Clearly two things you don't touch.
Yes, and I think, I say knock yourself out, guys. Eat loads of that shit because, the sooner you leave this world, the better.
Yeah, and your bowels will be infested within about a decade. So
it's
good
pretty
luck with it.
grim. It's pretty
Well,
grim.
it's
Anyway,
interesting. It's good juxtaposition to the story because both of those, Elon Musk and Rogan, endorsed Donald Trump. Musk couldn't have done more, essentially because he owns his own social media platform. And Rogan, after Trump appeared on his program, came out, I think in the last week or so, and said, "Yeah, this is the man to vote for." And it's clearly worked because the new president, 47th president of the United States, Dale, in case you missed the news, is Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it was really big news. Donald Trump won, although the polls had kind of suggested he might. He won by a huge margin, which is a really big surprise. And you've got to ask, WTF is going on in America, guys? For you to vote for this guy, he's like facing, I don't know, 36 charges of sexual assault or something like that. He's a convicted tax fraudster. He's a racist, a sexist, a homophobe. I mean, he's got the lists of ists behind him, and half of America as well. I mean, what the fuck?
Speaks well of you, Dale. The issue with climate's going to be fascinating because I think he's going to be compromised here because apparently he hates electric cars. He can't stand that. It's sort of totemic, visualized and actual evidence of everything that he hates. But Elon Musk inconveniently makes electric cars. So that's going to be a bit of a tricky powwow over steak and eggs, one assumes. I don't know how they're going to square that circle.
I think Trump hates windmills more. He's talking about massive tariffs on Chinese goods, and I can see the overlap of their interests here. You stick big tariffs onto Chinese electric cars and European ones, actually, and who benefits? It's Musk in it. I mean, the share price of Tesla shot up on news of Trump winning. I think Musk suddenly became 20 billion richer or even more overnight and that kind of stuff. And, here's the thing. There's a lot of concern around the place called Britain or the world, about Trump winning this and the impact it could have on our attempts to get to net zero. I actually think it'll have no effect at all. I think Trump has a lot of. I think Trump talks a good game about fossil fuels and being anti-wind and the climate crisis being a hoax and stuff like that. But the problem he faces is the economic reality. The jobs and the money are in renewable energy. They're not in fossil fuels. And there are states in America like Texas, we talked about it before, that benefited economically massively from Biden's IRA policy, the Inflation Reduction Act. And they've embraced that. They've embraced that as their own. And Trump won't get these people to give up renewable energy because, and the green economy more broadly. So I think he's more like King Canute, sat there trying to hold back the tide of green progress than he is anything else. And so I'm actually not that worried about what he does for the climate crisis because I think there's a real limit to what he can do actually. Not just because the rest of the world is going to be intent on doing it anyway, but because actually his own party will be intent on doing it anyway.
Well, somebody said to me the other day that if somebody had explained all of that to Trump, and maybe he already knows this, as a businessman, he'd be the first person to invest.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's a good way to put it. Actually, that's a bit more succinct than my version as well.
Well, I don't know. That they didn't really elaborate on it beyond that. But I think the point is that there's going to be if he's talking about creating new industries in America, getting people back to work, addressing unemployment issues, then you'd have to assume, bearing in mind China, his biggest rivals, have got a PhD in making everything from wind turbines to solar panels and God knows what else.
Yes. And the economic growth.
Why would he want to be left behind in that race?
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly right. And that's what I think. He won't want to be left behind. And actually, nor will his party, nor will half of his country that voted for him. This is an economic reality, and he can't turn his back on it. He can say what he likes, but he can't do what he likes in that respect. So I think we're safe on that front. I think the war in Ukraine may end rather quickly and perhaps in a way that most countries in the West won't be very happy with. I think the war in the Middle East will get bigger now because of Trump. And we're going to see massive trade battles between China, the EU, and the US. But he's got one thing on his side. He never actually started a war last time. He might be one of the few presidents of the United States that didn't start a war while he was in office. And maybe hopefully he won't start one this time around. I mean, I think it's a mixed bag, honestly.
Hopefully he'll stop one.
He's definitely going to stop one. I think that's definitely happening. And here's the thing, right? If you need a silver lining, this is his last term. Unless he can change the U.S. Constitution, he can't stand again.
That's true. Despite the gap in between, he can still only do 2 terms.
There's one more right wing nut just to mention.
Actually, go for it.
In this little, I mean, this is like the right wing nut episode. Now, Kemi Badenoch won the leadership contest, such that it was to lead the Tory party, such that it is into the next election. But that won't happen. I dare say. I don't think she'll make it the 4 to 5 years.
Has she not phoned you to say, Dale, don't hang around with Keir. Come with Kemi.
The moment I loved the most was her first PMQs, and she tried to make a joke out of Keir Starmer reading from a script, and while she was doing it, she was reading from a script.
Yeah.
That was so funny.
Not having her finest moment doing so either.
No, I mean, what lack of self-awareness does she have to be doing that? But, so here we have the latest, what do we call it? Latest leader of the Tory party. I'm going to be kind. That's all I'm going to say now.
There it is. Here's a question from Yvette on Facebook. What does James Dyson do next to avoid inheritance tax?
I love it. And this is, I think we're going to talk about this story in a minute in a wider context. But at the root of this is James Dyson a few years ago ran around buying up all the bits of Britain he could get his hands on, 36,000 acres, at a time when there was no inheritance tax on farmland. And he came out with an op-ed in one of the right-wing press in the last week, with a very angry missive about the budget, and one thing in particular, inheritance tax being applied to farmland above a certain threshold, about £1 million, I think it is, which will affect almost no farmers, but it affects him big time, and he's pissed off. And I say, well, fuck him.
And that's one way to look at it. Well, on that point, Starmer's tax raid will mean big corporations turn farmland into net zero forests. As you just mentioned, small percentage of farmers might be affected by this. The upshot is what? That people will forest these bits of land.
Well, this is what the Country Land Owners Association are saying, right? And this is, as the name gives the clue to, this is like the union for landowners. And of course, they're going to, do this kind of special pleading and say, oh, everybody's going to sell now. It's like, excuse me, CLA, if you sell your land, you also pay tax. So how does that solve the problem of inheritance tax? I don't really know. But I just want to say this. Remember James Dyson? He was the man that campaigned for Brexit. And as soon as it was done, he fucked off to the tax haven of Singapore.
Yeah.
I hold that against him, actually. I have a bit of a grudge about that.
Attached to one of his own vacuum cleaners. It's the only way to travel these days.
Yeah, but this thing about inheritance tax on farm, it's above a £1 million threshold. There are very few farmers that will affect. But look, everybody else pays inheritance tax. So why not?
Yeah.
And by the way, sorry, is this really a bad outcome? If farmland gets turned into net zero forests, if we rewild Britain, absorb carbon and bring back wildlife because of a tax change in the budget, that's got to be a pretty good, if unintended, outcome.
Yeah, unless you're Mick, whose farm it is. Might go, yeah.
He'll have just sold it.
I don't want a forest. I want my cows.
But he'll have just sold it and ran away with all the money.
That's very true. Yeah, he'll be living on a hammock in Barbados with James Dyson, probably.
as a neighbour, yeah.
Yeah. Here's a question from Chris, who says, Trump's flunkies want to remove fluoride from US water. Oh. Does this become the next conspiracy to hit the UK?
No, because it's been around for a long time. This fluoride thing, it predates smart meters and mobile phone masts and the COVID.
Oh, you mean the conspiracy theory?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. Apparently it's in you fluoridate, is that the right word? Water.
Yep.
And that you remove people's
resistance
capacity
to resist the machine
indeed, yes.
system. Yes.
Essentially, it's like some brave new world potion that is stuck in the water system that fiddles with your neurological mechanisms.
And we obviously don't drink enough tap water, Ian.
It's simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Simple as that. Here's one on Labour's Clean Power Plan. A huge challenge, but achievable, says the grid operator. Because there has been some criticism that what is happening with Labour's plans is incredibly ambitious, but so ambitious that it might not be achievable within a time frame.
Yeah, and I've been saying from the get-go about this ambition that it is quite big, but it is achievable. And now this organization called NESO, the National Energy Systems Operator, have come out and said the same thing. Ironically, this amuses me. I saw a piece from Desnes celebrating this report from NESO. And I remembered that it was only a few weeks ago that I think our government bought NESO. It's now publicly owned. And I thought,
yes,
there's no link there. I'm sure of it. This study stands on its own two legs. But
it is publicly owned, because if you go to the the website where you can see who owns stuff, the owner is Ed Miliband. Well, not him. I'm not joking. It is actually the Secretary of State.
Is it really? Well, I didn't know.
Zero. Yes,
I didn't know such a website existed either.
Well, it's the what do they call it?
Right Move.
The Company's House. That's Right Move. Yeah. Company's House.
Yeah,
and
got it.
Will tell you that. So a lot of conspiracy theories going, look, Ed Miliband owns the company. He's taking advice from his own company. It's not quite how it works.
I see. Shit, I just fed that conspiracy theory. No, I just read that and I thought, oh yeah, you paid 800 million quid for that a couple of weeks ago. I remember that. That was a smart move, but it got nothing to do with this study. There's just one thing I want to say about the study, apart from the fact that it supports what I've been saying for a couple of years, which is doable, is that at the heart of it was a recommendation to do the one thing I've been saying since the energy crisis hit, which is to break the link between the price of gas and the price of all electricity. These guys are saying do it, and they're saying that it can be done, because I've been hearing that the civil service has been saying, oh, it'll be really difficult, it'll take 10 years and that kind of stuff. And that, the current, well, I'm not going to go there. That's it. They're just saying it's going to be really difficult. and of course, it's not difficult. My people have looked at it and they've said, yeah, do you know what? We could do that in a very short time with no pain for anybody. And again, 200 quid off everybody's energy bill overnight. I mean, come on. Me and Nesso are now saying this, Ed. Are you listening?
You and Nessie or Nesso?
Nesso.
Sorry, I think you'd introduced a whole new character into this story that I've missed.
Well, it's possible. It's because you don't drink tap water.
That's what it is, yeah. No fluoridation in this system.
I'm just going to move now so my office lights come back on, because, this is the world we live in.
Here's a question from Damon on X. It all ties in really with the main theme. So do we all now have to work around Trump? Can we still tackle climate change with Donny in power? Because, of course, he's going to frack until his testicles fall off.
Yeah, but look, as I was saying earlier, I think there's a lot of fear about his impact on the world's progress towards net zero and all that kind of stuff. I think it's overdone. I think the economic reality will prevent him from having any major impact on this at all. I think his own party, I think the economic returns, everybody can see the opportunity of the green economy and all that kind of stuff. If he tries it, it'll be like King Canute. This is, the incoming tide of the green economy will just wash this person away.
Just before we go to X-rated corner, Japanese scientists have launched the first wooden satellite into space. I thought this was something from Viz, but this is apparently a true story. They've gone woodbound in the SAT department.
I think it's brilliant, and I think we should talk about it briefly for about as long as one of those will survive re-entry, which is not very long. And that's actually the whole point of it. The whole point is that satellites made out of metal, when they re-enter the atmosphere, they don't just magically disappear. All kinds of particles are being emitted that cause problems with telecoms and possibly human health and stuff like that. And a wooden satellite, in theory, won't do that. It'll just burn up, actually properly burn up. We'll see.
So it's not like they didn't know. It's not like they went, let's try it out of wood. See what could go wrong. Those people that buy about 10 grand's worth of drone and they go out into a field with their mates and they're very excited and they launch the drone and it just smacks into an oak tree. It's not that thinking that the Japanese are utilizing.
No, and they weren't looking for some kind of magical new or old ingredient either in terms of materials. It's a problem. There's so many satellites going up; they all come down. I mean,
that's true.
That's one of the laws of physics, right?
So it's a kind of it's an environmentally considerate satellite.
It is, and I'm loving it. A wooden satellite
made of balsa wood. Is it like, do you remember those little packets you could buy and make a little plane?
Yeah.
Out of very thin wood. It's perhaps it's in the sort of Acme satellite kit. Maybe. Here's a story Here's a story, Dale, that I just thought this was fascinating when I saw this. Apparently, you're going to buy the Observer newspaper.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's our friends in the Telegraph again saying that, right?
Yeah, the Telegraph. It's not even Charlotte saying it.
No, it's not Lottie. Not your mate Lottie. It's
Not
somebody
Lottie.
else. No,
She left this one alone. She's not that much good. Not that good at woke finding, is she? She didn't find this one.
That's right. She missed something big here.
So what's the story here? Are you buying the Observer?
Well, I could possibly comment.
Ah, okay. Because they say Dale is among the Labour-linked investors trying to buy the newspaper.
Well, actually, I mean, the Telegraph said it one way, and somebody else said it another way. Because it was the story I read in the Telegraph was that I was against the consortium that included some other Labour donors that were trying to buy it, and I was like entering the game a bit late to thwart them, and it's all kinds of confusing to me. And then somebody else wrote a story that said we were all in it together, actually. So that sounds like Lottie, doesn't it? That we were all in it together trying to buy the Observer. But it even wasn't her. I'm not sure who wrote it, but it's I think it's a fun story, and I'm not inclined to either deny or confirm.
All right. Well, this sounds like what we would call a recurring theme.
We would call it that, me and you, or people more generally.
So yeah, well, I mean, we can come back to this on a weekly basis for updates. I can just keep asking the question. You can say I can either confirm or deny.
Magic.
Let's go to X-rated special. X-rated Trump special. This comes from somebody called Though, and then some numbers after their name. You, Vince, are an absolute idiot spouting garbage about Donald Trump. People are awake to the vile democratic governments of the world who are truly sickening. Bore off and move to Venezuela. By the way, I'm from a mining town, and we all now hate Labour and the Democrats.
The Democrats. Lovely typo. Okay, let's deal with the last bit first. You're from a mining town, but you hate Labour. You haven't heard of this woman called Thatcher?
I'd never heard of her. Who is she?
Oh, okay. Well, she's dead now, so maybe it doesn't matter.
Here's one from Harley and Scout, who's a most liberal lefty elite like you, privately consider the majority of the electorate as idiots, modern-day serfs to be state-controlled and financially used and abused through the taxation system as they see fit to suit their political and economic aims and beliefs.
That's a brilliant thesis, right? Only thing
is so you're like the landowning gentry is the accusation.
That's what I was going to say. It's a brilliant thesis, but it's misapplied, right? It doesn't apply to people on the left. It applies to people on the right, using the electorate as idiots, modern day serfs, state controlled, taxed and abused, kept poor. Use food banks, people. Let them eat. Let them use food banks. I don't know what the equivalent might be, but yeah, I mean, great thesis, but you're surely missing the target with it completely.
Yeah, as my old nan would have said, "What a twat." Let's move to another question. Julian 74 says,
"We know when you were born, Julian."
We do. It wasn't, unless Julian is 74, of course. That's a possibility.
But then he'd have to keep changing his handle every year, so I don't think so.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I'm sure he'll be kicked off Twitter by the time he gets to 74. Says
Twitter will be dead by then.
Quite possibly. Julian says, it wasn't convicted of rape. Stop lying. It was a civil case. It'll be overturned in the Court of Appeal. One of the 3 black and Latinos voted for him. Post any racist comments, he said. You're posting misinformation. And are you pissed because he's ignoring climate zealots like you? Drill, baby, drill, says Julian.
I'm loving it. He wasn't convicted of rape, but it'll be overturned in the Court of Appeal. So it wasn't a conviction. What's it doing in the Court of Appeal then?
Well, yes,
just want to ask that
because there was a conviction.
Yes, indeed. And what can we say? 3 black and Latino voters voted for him. No, actually 1 in 3. I mean, there's some truth in here, actually. The number of black and Latino people that turned out for Trump is quite incredible. And I think, there was a problem for Kamala in that she was black and a woman. And I think there's a lot of traditional Democrat voters that avoided voting Democrat for that reason, which is a terrible, kind of state of affairs. It's almost as terrible as voting for Donald Trump, but actually not anywhere near.
Well, a final one from the good liberal who says, old Dale making a fortune out of the doubling of our energy bills. Wholesale gas prices are at the same level as 5 years ago, yet our energy bills have doubled in price to make Dale an absolute fortune. He's creaming it in.
That's a horrible expression, isn't it? That's just
It's
horrible.
not a nice expression,
especially for a vegan. I mean, it's like, come on.
Yeah, never bring that into it.
And gas bills aren't double anyway, but they are. Or
yeah.
were.
Well, what's happening then? Wholesale prices.
Well, they have dropped
what they
again.
were 5 years ago.
They have. Well, I don't know if that's...
Is that true? I don't know.
I'm not even sure if that's true. But I mean, the bills are what they are, and Ofgem are regulating the hell out of them with a 1.5% profit margin for energy suppliers. So it's hard to believe that anybody's making a fortune out of this, except, of course, for the oil and gas companies that make the stuff, not the suppliers of energy, but the producers of energy.
Yeah, there's a big difference, and that distinction isn't often made enough, frankly. But that is a difference.
Yep.
That's it, Dale. We're done.
Shit, I was just starting to enjoy myself.
We were just getting warmed up, and the whole thing came tumbling down to a crunching end. But of course, you can follow Dale on social media, facebook.com/DaleVince, twitter.com/DaleVince, and on TikTok too.